Welcome back, everybody, to the MEIO YouTube channel. Today, we'll be introducing a new segment we call the Complaint Train, in which we'll be complaining about various subjects. Today, we're going to be talking about expectations.
So I feel like we're at a point in our life where this pandemic has made us question a lot about ourselves. Like it's made people take the time to pause and reflect on where they're at. And I think that with all this time we have, it's made us personally think on what's the next chapter. Like I've been thinking like, what am I going to do next in after this?
That's a really good point. Like during the pandemic, you always think like, I need to get experience for grad schools and like professional school. And then it's not easy to find experience, right? And you're like, oh shoot, what other backup plans can I have? Stuff like that.
Yeah, like especially in COVID, how are you supposed to get out there and, get some experience?
Yeah, I feel like we're at an age like 19, 20, even 21, where there's like a lot of pressure that's put on us at those times where there's so much emphasis on how we should define ourselves, especially in like our careers or our experiences or even our accomplishments.
Yeah, like from when we were like little, for example, we always thought we would like just, do step A, B, and C and get to like, a point. And we always have this thought like, oh, I'm gonna be this when I'm older. And that's also like shaped by everyone around us, right? Like, oh, I want you to end up with something, good later on in your life, like be successful and all.
Parents could be like, ever since you're like young, telling you, influencing you basically, like telling their dreams and forcing that onto yours. Maybe not forcing, but like influencing essentially.
Yeah, definitely.
Like I know my family, like they definitely like have it engraved that we have to have this sort of plan of what's the next thing. And I guess that expectation is also put into yourself. And so you feel like you have to know what's next in your life.
Yeah, like I hate it when I'm asked that because I honestly, like, sometimes you just don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah.
Because you're confused and you don't know yourself. Like you're still figuring it out, but everyone expects you to have it down,
Yeah, that's the thing. Like it's hard to find self-awareness. It's apparently we have to have everything figured out. Like at the age of like 17 and 18, like we had to make decisions about like post-secondary, like whether if we're going to college or university, and like what major do I go into, or should I even go to university or college? But we both know that like our family's like, no, you definitely have to go to post-secondary.
Yeah, and like we are not given enough time sometimes to figure out what we actually want to do, and then we might like rush into things we like, might not want to do. So it's like because we're always asked like what is your plan for the next upcoming thing, we're always like, dwelling on that and we're always thinking about that.
It doesn't really like allow us to take our time and like see what we really want to do in our lives.
Yeah.
Like our passion, we can't really find it out if we're expected to do things that they want us to do,
Yeah, because at that point where it's hard for us to feel genuinely happy for ourselves, or if we're just trying to please our like family or society, because society's telling us that we should behave this way or we have to become this person that we don't really agree with ourselves.
Exactly. And like I feel like everyone else doesn't know where we're coming from, or like they don't know how it's like to be in our shoes, right? So they always think it's going to be easier than it actually is. So they expect us to know exactly what to do, but honestly it doesn't work like that. And then we have to put on all these faces.
Yeah.
There's that age-old stereotype that, like, every Asian kid is going to like become a lawyer or a doctor due to like family pressure and stuff like that, you know?
Mhm.
And like
Yeah, exactly. Like
And there's
I
consider
all
feel
like
like
weird if you didn't. Oh, sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I said like I agree with what you're saying. Like it could be ingrained in you like since you were young. Like, oh, you must be like a like a doctor or lawyer.
Or an engineer, anything. Anything that
Exactly.
like
yeah,
that they like want us to do, or like that they perceive as a stable, like you know what I mean, like a
yeah,
stable job, but then we're not able to like do what we really want to do.
yeah. There's
Yeah.
not much options. It's either those becoming a doctor or lawyer is what society or what our family considers as successful
Mhm.
because they think that that's like the only way to go. But there's always other options. I don't know why we're told to be like only choose those paths.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like living in a box almost. You can't see what's really out there when you're like only given few things to choose from. So then it
Yeah.
feels like, it feels messy and confusing.
It's really interesting because like every time you graduate, you know, like the principal comes up and they're like, you know, you're the next generation of like scholars and like teachers and
Oh my
lawyers and
God.
doctors and everything, you know, like every single time there's a graduation, like some principal steps up and makes that speech. And what's really interesting is that like people forget that like if everybody just becomes a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer or whatever, like the world doesn't work, right? You need people helping us like work the garbage trucks every day. You need like the janitors at schools, you know, like everybody's important in this society. And I don't feel like
Yeah.
it's represented fairly in like, you know, people are like, you know,
Mhm.
you're gonna be like our next leaders and stuff like that. And like, you know, they really
Mhm.
like fantasize, they make it like so fantastical, you know. It makes everyone like assume like one day they just have to be something great when they grow up, you know.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Like I feel like nothing is really big or small in this world. Like whatever you do for a living, I feel like it's not big or small. Like it's like valuable in its own way. So it really depends on perspective. But I can understand why many people would want their children or like anyone who they know to be like successful or like do something, I don't know, what they consider major or like important. But I think they should honestly let the people decide for themselves like what they actually want to do. And I feel like sometimes we forget like we can't impose our views on everyone else, and we have to let them think for themselves and explore what they actually want to do.
Mhm. Yeah, like how are we supposed to grow if we can't try out other options or explore on new paths that could be potential for a career that we want to do or some like opportunities that we might want to take. So it's hard to choose different options.
Yeah, and like we're always worried about pleasing others, as Lavanya brought up
Yeah.
earlier. So we always think about, oh, I really like to do this, but will everyone else be happy with what I
Mhm.
choose to do? So then you might be like, oh, maybe I should not do this anymore, even though I like to do it because everyone else is going to judge me for it.
Yeah. And then now that we're almost like finishing up undergrad, like what's the next thing that we have to do is what's concerning like people like us.
Yeah, it's like a really tough spot in our life because like not everything is as straightforward as you thought it would be when you were growing up, for example.
Yeah.
It takes time and everything requires so many things, like every single process, everything is involved into it, like so many things go into it. So it's not just like, oh, you go from 1 2 and 3 to 4, but like it's so much different than that.
Yeah, like not life isn't like always about having a plan of what's next. And like I know that certain families expect us like at a certain age to have a career or to have a family at a certain age. But it's not always the case like that.
Yeah, exactly. They think like everything should be on a timeline, like get done studying by, I don't know, 25, have kids at something other, like some other age. So it's like life doesn't go by a timeline, but everyone else sees it that way. And then if you're not following the timeline, they think you're running behind or like you're running late.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Like society imposes these like quote unquote restrictions or like fantasies about how we're supposed to live our lives, you know?
Exactly. Like now you'll have a lot of like people coming up and telling you like, yeah, you should definitely think about being done at so and so age so that you can actually grow and have a family of your own someday. But like honestly, that's up to like individuals, to decide when they want to do all those things. But everyone thinks there's like, oh, an ideal time to have kids or get married, for example.
Yeah. And the thing is, everyone experiences things at a different time in their life. Like the ages don't really matter. I feel like we feel all these ways at a different point in our life, and there shouldn't be a rush.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's more a generational thing. And I think that people older than us, they would have like a generational gap between us in which they expect like, oh, you can always make some sort of plan and follow with it. So then it should be that hard. But I think everything nowadays is complicated and it doesn't work that way. So then there's a bunch of like misunderstandings, I guess. So they think it's easy, but we don't think it's easy. And then it just goes back and forth that way.
Yeah, I feel like family, like even before you're born, I feel like your life is planned before
Right?
from your
Exactly.
parents.
Yeah.
Like they have an idea for you on like what they expect for you to be in the future,
Yeah.
like for what you should do in the future. But like you didn't even get that chance to explore yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like
know?
I feel like people need to
So,
give chances to people to explore,
yeah,
and
Yeah.
figure out what they like.
yeah. You shouldn't be afraid to be who you are. You have to take
Yeah.
that risk, go forward, and like take your time and experience the world.
Yeah,
So yeah.
there's so much out there. Like, we should get a say. It's our life. We should be able to decide what we want to do, what
Mhm.
choices we want to make.
And expectations are not no one else's expectations, but your own matter. So
Yeah. Like
If
I
you want to
know,
go for it, go
sorry,
for
go
it,
ahead.
go for it. No, go for it,
Oh,
go for it.
like I'm saying, like our most of our parents' dream is to like acquire good education and like to get the best successful life. And I know that like a lot of families, they look down upon the whole like taking a gap year from school, and they think that it's wrong to take time to just figure out what you want to do.
yes, the infamous gap year. Yeah, that
Yeah.
discussion is always something. But yeah, never be
Hmm.
afraid to take a break for sure. Life is not like a rule book. There's no
Mhm.
rules to lead your life. You
Yeah.
can write it the way you want and just experience life for whatever you want to experience it for.
Definitely, if you want to enjoy life, do what you want to do and do what you feel like you should do. And
Mhm.
that's the best way to enjoy life.
Yeah. I feel
Exactly.
like
I feel like, oh yeah, go ahead.
I feel like it's more easier said than done because we may feel like we want to do all these things in life, but then there's always something that's holding us back, whether it's family or society, because you feel like you should um, belong in their whole rule book, like what Shada was saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like there should be no, rigid type of list of things you need to do to be successful. I feel like it can be flexible and it just can go on the way you want it to go on. You can take any route you want and you'll end up the way you want to end up. Like there's no point of stressing about it if you're determined and if you're persistent. I feel like you'll get it anyway. But sometimes we do need to realize that not everything has like a rigid timeline. And I know so many examples of people who are successful, and it took them time to get there. And they didn't just hop from point A to point B like that, you know? It just, there's a bunch of messy roads in between. So it's not that easy, like Lavanya was saying, but it's going to be messy, but it'll be a fun ride if it's messy.
Yeah.
And that being said, I feel like this concludes our rant for expectations of life.
Yeah. Stay tuned for our next video. It could be in this series too. About
And if you want to be happy, subscribe to our channel.
so yeah, stay tuned and we'll see you guys in the next video.
Comment down below any expectations you have that you're trying to fight against.